Welcome, everybody. I'm Mark Peter Davis, Managing Partner of Interplay. I'm on a mission to help entrepreneurs advance society, and this podcast is definitively part of that effort. Today, we've got Lydia Fenet on to talk to us about sales. Now, she is an expert auctioneer and runs the Lydia Fenet agency, which helps place auctioneers at different charity events. She's got an incredible background. She has raised over $1 billion for 800 different charities. She spent over 20 years of her career at Christie's. She's a best-selling author of 2 books and has her own podcast, if you're interested, called Claim Your Confidence. Now, the reason why we wanted to have her on is I have found that there are a lot of intersectionalities. There are opportunities to learn from people in various disciplines and draw those insights into your own practice. So as an entrepreneur, startup person, or general business person, hearing about the sales techniques used by an auctioneer may apply to corporate sales, BD, fundraising, or even M&A. I hope you find some insights in this. And with that, here's Lydia. Lydia, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Let me start at the top. Why did you choose to be an auctioneer?
This is such a funny story on so many levels because it is a job that so few people know anything about. And the first 2 questions I get when people say to me, how did you become an auctioneer? They first will ask me, what's the most expensive thing you've ever sold? And the second one is, do you talk really fast? Which is always my favorite way of introducing the auctioneering world because people assume that an auctioneer is somebody who's selling livestock or...
It's like the Micro Machines guy they're all thinking of.
Exactly. Yeah. They're like just rambling through it. Or they've seen it in a movie where someone's selling Picassos for hundreds of millions of dollars. And there's something that's nothing in between those two. It's just like one or the other. And I learned about auctioneering because I interned at a place called Christie's Auction House in New York City when I was in college. And it was really the first time I'd ever seen an auctioneer up close and personal. And really an auctioneer is just in sales at the end of the day. And I've always loved sales. And so I think it appealed to me on 2 levels. I love performing and I love to be on stage, but I also love to sell things. And at the end of the day, that's what auctioneering is. You are standing on a stage trying to convince someone to bid one more increment so that you can sell something for more. And in every part of my life, sales has always been an exciting and fun thing. And to me, it just seemed like the penultimate.
Is there a through line in your childhood, early, maybe college internships of sales? Is that a thing that's carried all the way through?
My dad
kind of emerge?
I think it was just always watching my dad. He's an attorney. He's an incredible salesperson, and he just loves to convince people to do things and to buy things that they don't really want.
Okay.
So I'd seen it.
Sounds relevant.
Yeah, it sounds like, it's like what we do every day. But I do think that was the through line for me. I had a lemonade stand when I was little because my dad encouraged me to do it. Every job I had, my dad was always like, yeah, go try it. Don't be scared of it. Go out there and do it. And so auctioneering just seemed like the next logical step for me.
Now you've taken a meta approach to the industry. A lot of people go into an industry, they do the thing. You've built a platform. So you've built the first agency for auctioneers. Can you tell me a little about that?
Absolutely. So I was at Christie's, as I mentioned before, for over 23 years. And I was in charge by the time I left of the auctioneers, in particular, the charity auctioneers. Charity auctioneers are people who go out on stage, neither the car salesman that I talked about earlier, nor the person who sells the Picassos for $100 million. They're the person who goes out on stage late at night and at a fundraising gala, and sells stuff that people don't even know that they're planning to buy when they walk in the door. And in my opinion, it is the ultimate sales role because you get on a stage and you're selling a puppy that nobody wants at 11 o'clock at night. And you got to figure out how to keep 500 people's attention. And you've got to figure out how to place that puppy for 10 times what someone wants to pay for it and do it with a smile on your face. And in my case, in heels. And so charity auctioneering for me was always my biggest love with auctioneering. I love being on that stage. I love that it's all for nonprofits. And at the end of my time at Christie's, I was running the charity auctioneering program, and I noticed 2 things. First and foremost, people would come to me about a week or 2 before their fundraising gala to ask for a charity auctioneer. It was incredible to me because if you think about what people do to put together one of these galas, they are doing invitations, they're getting caterers, they're getting florists, and they're lining them up a year in advance. And then the one person who has the opportunity to get on stage and make the money that night, they're calling 2 weeks before.
Right.
And no one was
the center of attention on top of all that.
And the center of attention, and can really make or break. You know, if you've ever been to any kind of fundraising gala where there's somebody who is not good at that job, it is so cringy, to use my child's word, cringy and painful. So that was kind of the first thing that I had noticed for many years. And I was always sort of like, you should be calling far, far in advance of this. Like before you even get your gala space, you want that talent locked in. But then in the auctioneering world itself, there's no place to go if you need a charity auctioneer other than the auction houses. And for an auction house, it's a volunteer service that's provided for people who are clients. And then otherwise, you just have all these random people who are just good with the microphone and they run around on stage and jump on tables. And it's kind of tacky and it doesn't really work in a lot of places. And so when I saw that white space and this opportunity, I could not really unsee it. And my last year at Christie's, I was requested over 250 times as an auctioneer. And I just I can't take that many auctions, you know, even at that point with a full-time job, I have 3 children. I still was on stage 80 to 90 nights a year.
Wow.
And I still am, even with the agency. But essentially what I did was I called all of the auctioneers that I'd trained. And then there were a number of people who I'd seen on stages in New York who looked like they had what it took. And I would have passed them if they'd been at Christie's. And I said, listen, if I start a talent agency where I represent you and I ring fence this and we get the business in like that, would you be interested? And all of them said yes. So now I represent 12 auctioneers.
That's awesome. Is there when you're looking at picking talent, I mean, that's got to be one of the value propositions here is when someone goes to you, they're going to get a curated set of people who are professionals.
Yeah.
Where do auctioneers come from?
Yeah.
Right? Is it a sales background? Are they comedians? Like what's the channel where you're thinking, hey, one of the natural next steps, even though you may not see the career progression, is to become a charity auctioneer?
The biggest indicator for me of a person who is good as a charity auctioneer is whether or not they're fearless on stage. And by fearless, I mean, and if you are not a good public speaker, this will make you cry when I tell you this situation. Imagine somebody hands you one piece of paper with 3 lines of copy and says, now go on the stage right now and make $10 million. Like that's my job. So I walk out in a room of 1,000 people who've been drinking. Half of the people know that they're there for a reason. Half of them are guests, so they don't know why they're there. They just think they're coming to hang with a friend. And there's a fundraising moment where you have to look into an audience of people and get them on your side so that they're not talking over you, and get them to put peer pressure unintentionally or intentionally on the people in the audience who are bidding and make it fun. And so a person who is truly fearless on stage is probably has an improv background, has been an auctioneer for years, even in an auctioneering capacity, is a newscaster. That's somebody, I have a couple of those on my team now, because if you think about it in their job, people are throwing them things. Most recently, I was speaking with a woman who I'm going to bring on the team who did debate in high school. And she told me that actually someone used to spray her in the face with a water bottle anytime she said the word just to really teach her how to speak on stage. So that's really, in my opinion, the most important quality, and the rest I can train in. But you have to be able to get on any stage anywhere in the world and people are talking over you and you know how to make them stop in a way that doesn't make them angry.
So that's that next part that I'm super interested in, right? There are people who have the innate ability to be public speakers. I'm envious of that. I see that. I think it's phenomenal. But for a lot of the people who are going to listen to this, the broader business community, what I really want to extract is the ways in which you're using psychology and sales techniques in that environment to really catalyze the outcomes. Because if you've ever been to a charity auction, the bidding, the psychology, it's abnormal. The decisions people make, the checks people write. Now, maybe they come in with some sort of load of predisposition, but I think there's more to it than that. So can you give me, I don't know, maybe the 3 biggest lessons you might want to teach someone? Let's say someone comes to you and they say, hey, I'm a great public speaker. I've got all that extroversion and confidence, and I could take that 3-line paper and make $10 million, I think. What are the techniques and tactics that they need to start thinking about?
The first one, probably the most important one, is that you have to get the audience on your side. And by that I mean, so many people walk out and they've already figured out what they're going to say, and they leave the audience out by themselves. So they don't engage with the audience. They don't interact with the audience. When something happens in the audience, they pretend it didn't, like a phone rings, someone drops something. I like to say that probably the easiest way to win over an audience is to drop the wall between you. to make a really easy joke the minute you walk in about something that everybody in the room can see, everybody in the room is aware of. So putting the audience at ease is a very easy way to win over a crowd. And once you figured out your key things, I was saying I often lead with a joke. That's for me a very easy way, something that everyone in that entire room can know. If you've flown into a city, for instance, and I'll say, I've spent half an hour here. I think this might be my favorite city in the world. I think I'm moving to this city. So I'm your new city resident, and jumping in from that point of view. That just something to make everyone feel really warm and comfortable. So that's sort of the first thing that I would say. The second thing that I think a lot of people forget as well when they get on stage is the importance of listening to your audience. Because as a speaker, so often you are the only person talking the whole time. Again, going back to that, allowing the audience in, from my perspective as the auctioneer, if I get on the stage to an audience that I don't know anything about, and I immediately launch into the auction, not having any idea what their capacity for giving is, I go to a new city and I jump on stage and I'm like, I'm going to start the bidding at $20,000. I might shut off 99% of the audience. So then they all turn and talk to each other the entire time. So much better for me to say to the audience, like, is there anyone in this room who'd like to start off my bidding? And then I just wait. And inevitably someone will raise their hand. And instead of telling them what they're going to bid, I ask them, well, where would you like to start my bidding this evening? And they're flustered. And sometimes I'll say, you should remember that I worked at Christie's for 20 years when you think about what you'd like to give tonight. And then I just wait a little longer. And that person all of a sudden was going to give $1,000, and now they're giving me $10,000, because for them, immediately, they want to impress the crowd, right? You talk about that sort of peer pressure, the people in the room, but I'm not putting any pressure on him. I'm just allowing silence to do the work. So listening in silence and sort of using those pauses and those intentional sort of moments for the audience to expand and contract in front of you, I think is another really important part of public speaking as well. I think so many times when you see someone who's not a good public speaker, they've lost the crowd, right? Everyone's looking on their phone. They're looking up in the air. Like, what do you do to bring that audience into your performance? And a lot of that can be done by that sort of listening while you're up on that stage as well.
So tactics that I'm hearing, because you are putting pressure on them, even through that silence. I think it's an intentional type of pressure.
Of course, yeah.
Which I think is brilliant. So they obviously have a lot of social pressure. Their peer groups there maybe judging them. They probably came in with some intent, right? They've had a little alcohol to ease them up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then what are the fallacies you're kind of looking for? Are there psychological patterns? Are there tells? How do you know who to pick on, who to ask the first question?
So the reason that I go out with that question, would anyone like to start my bidding? I always say, like, in every audience, there's somebody who likes to be seen. That's the person who raises their hand. The person whose hand goes up at the beginning of the auction for me is my auction foil. On the next lot, wherever that person started my auction lot, by the way, they're not going to win. That person who started me off is never going to win.
Whoever raises their hand never
going to win. But they're starting my bidding. So
why don't they win? Because you would think that they're going to be the aggressive.
No, they just want to be seen.
They just want everyone to say, hey.
And they probably.
So-and-so's,
Yeah. Look at Mark.
Contributing.
What a guy. Look at him standing in the front row, bidding it up. What a good. And I want him to feel like that. And that's why I keep going back to him. So we sell the first lot. The first lot goes for $20,000. Great. Sold. On to the next. Lot 2. I'll look around the audience and I'll be like, well, Mark didn't get the first one, so Mark probably wants the second one. Mark, do you want to start me off again at, what did you start it off at, $10,000? Now you're in, and there's nothing you're going to do. You're not going to not raise your hand at that $10,000.
Right. You just bid for the person.
100%. I've given Mark the opportunity to be seen, which is what he wants. But this also gets Mark's entire table involved, right? So now I have a table of 10, and probably the table around, all watching Mark at those moments. So they're quiet, which is great, because I need people who are quiet. But then in addition to that, anybody else who is a little bit like Mark, who likes to be seen in those moments, is sitting up a little bit straighter in their chair. And I'm looking around for those people, because then I need more people to play off of as we move forward as well. So the interesting thing is, when I'm bouncing those bids, I can see in their seat the people who are sitting up a little straighter.
Do you have a word for this type of person who's like, wants to be talked to? Maybe they're not the win, but they're going to win. They're not going to win the bid, but they might be a catalyst for your process.
I mean, I don't have a singular name, but I do call them different things.
Yeah, I don't care if it's negative. What is it?
Well, Superman, George Clooney, the Silver Fox. Like,
but that's just, you'll name each person as you go.
Whatever I see in front of me. Yeah, Silver Fox on the right, George Clooney's younger brother. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, because again,
so they all get a name.
Everybody gets a name, and then also it helps me remember who they are in the audience, because By the way, I'm in front of 1,000 people. And when I go left, I may not see Mark,
Right.
but I'm like, where's Mark? Mark sits up in his chair. And then Mark's my bidder for
and
lot
these
number
become
3.
part of the cast of your play.
100%.
How many people do you need in the cast to run a successful auction?
Well, depending on the city, because in a lot of cities like New York, I take auctions sometimes 5 in a week, all in the city.
Yeah.
Sometimes 2 in a night. I can run into a lot of the same people over and over again. And so I have to be really careful about overusing jokes or, calling people out too many times with the same things. So it really helps me, and kind of going back to what I said about that sales tool of involving the audience, of calling out what I see in the audience. So it might be something as simple as the woman in the red dress, what a color. So few of us can pull it off, and you're killing it tonight, ma'am. The woman in the red dress, sitting up higher in her chair. Every woman in a red dress, sitting up higher in her chair. Everybody comes up to me afterwards to show me their red dress. And now I'm part of that community. Because by the way, this is a year-over-year thing for me. And that's sales in a way, right? Calling out people who want to be seen, bringing them into your fold. We're all friends now.
You're feeding their ego a little bit,
100%.
bringing them in your process.
Yeah.
5, 10 people, 3. What's too few? What's too many?
I mean, it could be as many as I want. It could be 20 people. It doesn't matter.
You could navigate that.
Yeah, 100%. And also, don't forget an auction, if you've ever been to a charity gala, and I know that this is such a nuanced world, so I'm trying to explain it as I go, but in a charity gala, you have the live auction lots that you're selling, but then you also have a paddle raise at the end that is allowing every person to raise their hand at some level and give some amount of money. And so if the live auction goes well, my hope is that even if you were an underbidder, meaning you didn't win the final bid, you'll still get money in the paddle raise. So I have to keep that whole room engaged and part of this fun play. So yeah, if I have 20 people and only 10 of them win, or even 5 of them win those live auction lots, that means there are 15 other people in that room I can go back to during the paddle raise as I'm asking people for money at the end. And I say, is there anyone in the room who would like to give $10,000? And let's pretend the woman in red didn't unfortunately win her lot. I'd say something like, I only wish that there was someone who was dressed in red who didn't win something for $10,000 who might want to give that in the paddle raise now. And then I just wait. She'll raise her hand.
Right.
Because all of a sudden she's part of the play. And someone who's part of the play has to be, they want to be a lead actor or actress.
So you've got the cast of characters who want the attention, and that's their motivation. What's the profile of the person who wins?
The profile of the person who wins is they probably have come in wanting something. It's a charity auction, right? So it's not an art auction. They've probably wanted to give some amount of money and they have the capacity. And so they're having fun and they keep going.
So they already showed up with a number in mind, most likely.
Yeah.
They were going to go.
They were going to go. And then there's probably, 1 or 2 who came as a guest of a friend who have the capacity. And again, we're just having fun. I always say to people, there is a point in the auction where people who are bidding, even if you have a lot of money, start to feel a little gross about the amount of money that they're giving. They're really just giving this money. They probably won't even cash the trip in, like in most of these cases. But we're at the $30,000 level and their hand is still up. And so all of a sudden they're like, wait, is this seeming a little gauche? Like, should I not be bidding this much? So my whole job is to make them feel great about what they're giving and to make the crowd support it.
Right.
Because as long as the community of people are behind them, they're not going to feel like that. When they start feeling like an individual who's about to get a really expensive trip. So that's why at that moment, kind of talking about the language of selling, I might say, I can sort of see people starting to pull back and they're looking at their husband, wife, or partner or whatever it is. And I'll say something like, we're at $30,000 and I see the person kind of look at their wife like that we might be over our skis at this point. Like, let's pull back a little bit. And I'll say something like, and the beauty of this trip is that $30,000 is going to get you this incredible house in Mexico. But more importantly, $30,000 is going to keep the lights on at the Boys and Girls Club for the operating costs every single year from now for the next 4 years.
You re-anchored it to values and integrity.
Yes, 100%.
So they don't have to feel gross.
Yeah. Because how great do you feel now?
Right.
You've forgotten about the trip. Everyone is like, what a star, right? So it's sort of toggling between those two things.
Is there a point where you get someone pretty far into the bid and you're in the zone? Is there a psychology or tactic to get them maximized? How do you get from, hey, they've bid a lot to they've bid their maximum, even if it's more than they maybe had budgeted?
So in that case, you're going back to your underbidder. And this would be my third point that I would say. Your underbidder is your most important person because as long as you keep the underbidder going, you're going to have the person who has enough money to keep going.
What's the underbidder mean?
The underbidder is the person who's under the top bidder. So ultimately, they're the person who's driving the bidding. The bidder is ultimately the winner has won and the underbidder has lost.
Right.
So the other thing I will often do with the underbidder is I am leaning so heavily into that underbidder because I can see that they're the one hesitating, right? And then the winning bidder, a lot of times, like you can kind of see that they're going to keep going. They're just little.
So you know early on in the two people who are left, which one's going to end up being second place.
Yeah.
And you're just playing them off each other just the right amount.
9 times out of 10.
9 times out of 10.
It's because of things you asked about the psychology earlier, where your hand is on the paddle. What you're doing with the paddle. Is it being twisted in your hand? Have you put it, like if someone takes their paddle and puts it down, that's not a great sign for me. So I can say something to them directly. Well, sir, I saw that you just put your paddle down. May I suggest you take a pause, take a long sip of wine, and then pick the paddle back up or something like that. And they might laugh and do it again. If they don't pick it back up, it means they're out of money. So they've done, they're not bidding anymore. But I can sort of test that out with a couple of sort of just gentle jokes to see you never embarrass the underbidder. And in fact, if it's been, I got Eli Manning and Peyton Manning an opportunity to be on a video with them that would then be played in Times Square for the Boys and Girls Club 2 weeks ago. The bidding stalled at $20,000 and then 3 bidders jumped in out of nowhere. We were at $110,000. And there was, again, we're at that point, like, are we going to feel sick about this? It was for the New Orleans chapter. I'm from Louisiana. I was digging into every Louisiana resource I could. And what ultimately took the other guy up to 120,000 was that I said to the crowd, I think we should be supporting our side of the room. Like the left side, you should be cheering for the gentleman who's bidding $110,000 and you should be cheering on the right side. And they really ramped it up.
Yeah.
Yes. So the community got them to that point because I think he probably would have stopped at 100, honestly.
This is a very unique psychological dynamic when you get everybody in the moment, real time. There's no time to cool down, time to think,
time to hide,
time to recalibrate. Yeah.
time to run away.
And when I think about this particular paradigm of a sales dynamic versus an enterprise sale or an offline auction, which is a format that a lot of business people experience more often than this. I'm trying to figure out what techniques transcend. What from this, because not all of it applies, what from this applies to the wisdom of building a relationship and selling a huge contract through an enterprise?
Yeah.
Anything jump out at you?
Listen, I think at the end of the day, one of the most important things, and I always go back to listen. This is, I've dealt with partnerships or Christie's for 20 plus years. And one of the biggest mistakes I would see walking into a partnership deal was that people would immediately start selling without understanding what I needed. And on the flip side, the same thing, that I would walk into a room and someone on my team would launch into something without asking a single question of the person seated next to them or sitting across from them. 9 times out of 10, the person who you are talking to is going to tell you everything you need to know immediately. How are your sales going? How's your year going? What are you guys up to? I said this was easiest during COVID. You would walk in with a complete deal for partnership, for multi-year partnership, and people would be like, well, I was like, how's everything going? Well, things kind of cratered during COVID. Don't even ask about the partnership. Put it away and build the relationship. Because everything is about relationship building at the end of the day. You've probably done partnerships with people and done deals with people because of the person who is sitting in front of you rather than deal, because you trust that person and you know that at the end of the day, whatever you guys work on, you're going to be moving in the right direction. And that's really, to me, the core of sales. People buy from me on stage because they trust me, and they should. I'm not going to sell them something they don't want. And at the end of the day, that is the key to every sale, is that you're building a foundation that people are going to trust. And that means you have to understand and you have to listen to the person across from you.
What's like the golden question for you, though? If you have to pick one question that opens the door and elicits the information someone needs, what do you lead with?
I would probably lead with something as simple as, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, what's your motivation?
So not even about the transaction at all.
I don't even believe 9 times out of the 10, it's really about the transaction. I have to understand what you need to sell you anything. And no matter what I'm selling, it probably can fit a need that you have. But until I understand what that is, I can't even start the sales process.
So a lot of people listening to this are going to be in the startup background, right? And there's 2 market auction dynamics that kind of happen in that journey. One is fundraising from VC funds, and it's usually a blind deal where the entrepreneur's in the center. They know all the parties. They may be playing them against each other in the best of outcomes. Maybe there's not enough people to actually create competition in some cases. Mm-hmm. And there's a similar format when they might sell the company if it goes through an M&A process. Mm-hmm. What of the auction dynamic can be applied to this asynchronous? You don't have the benefit of the crowd rooting for someone. Not everyone's drunk at the moment.
That's a shame.
Yeah, right. Makes it a lot. I'm sure it makes a difference.
You could improve on that. Just FYI.
Maybe you start sending alcohol to all the bidders. Any techniques you can think of that kind of pull through that maybe aren't obvious?
Again, going back to what I said a little bit earlier, I do think so much about it is understanding who's across the table from you. Really diving into the points of commonality where you can come to them and explain to them what you are selling and why they should buy it in a way that they would understand. I'm sure you've heard the statistic about female founders receiving 3% of VC funding. And they say that one of the biggest issues that a lot of women have when they go in to sell is they walk in and start talking about something and the person on the other side of the table is like, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. This doesn't apply to me. And so what is it that you have that is going to apply to the person sitting across the table? I don't think any sales pitch is ever really the same if you're good at what you do. So that, for me, if you are a person who is about to go in and start pitching, you need to know everything you possibly can about the people who are going to be looking at this. And then that sales pitch needs to apply to them in a way that they will understand it.
What I think might be the genius or the most interesting thing about your response there is in the auction environment, you don't have the chance to really ask a lot of questions of a 1,000-person or 500-person audience. But I have a feeling in your craft and your expertise, you can infer information from the body language like you were talking about with the lady in the red dress. And so you are listening, even in a non-dialogue.
Yeah. I would also say, too, the other thing that you can always use is the power of suggestion and giving people the answer for why they should do something. I do this all the time on the auction stage. As recently as 2 nights ago, someone said to me, we're going to offer a ski house for the auction.
Right.
And I immediately said to them, is it a ski house or is it just a house in Aspen, which is where the location was? And they said, oh, no, they can use it year round. I would never in a million years get on a stage and offer a room of 1,000 people a ski house, because I probably would eliminate half of the audience just by using the word ski. Because some people are too old. Some people don't ski. Some people don't like skiing. You probably enjoyed the flowers in spring or perhaps fall. Everyone loves summer in a beautiful mountainous climate, right? And right there, I've completely opened the door. So when I get on stage, I would say, ladies and gentlemen, I have a house for all seasons for you. If you are a person who loves leaf peeping, the fall is for you. Spring, the flowers are incredible. If you're a skier, there's no better place. And certainly the summer. Everyone loves the summer, right?
The power of suggestion. Where did you pick up this framing, right? Because probably without even thinking about it intuitively, you just used a certain if, then statement. And it led to planting a seed in the mind.
Yeah.
Is there a technique that you ascribe to, or is this just something that, you evolved in?
Something I learned on stage. It started with, something as simple as I would be describing a house in Mexico. When I became an auctioneer, I was trained as an art auctioneer. And so I would get on stage and try to sell things the way that you would sell a Picasso. So I would get on stage and say, ladies and gentlemen, and I would read out the specifics of what I was selling a house in Aspen, 7 nights, 6 days, or 6 days, 7 nights. No, whatever. I'm selling a house in Aspen. Let's go back to that.
Right.
Anyway, there's a hot tub. And I would basically just tell exactly what was on that sheet of paper. And then I would look up at the audience and I would say, is there anyone here who would like to bid $3,000 to start? And then everybody would just talk over me.
Right.
And that was 10 years of my auctioneering career. And I tell this story of one night where I was really sick the whole day. And I was taking an auction. It was a Saturday night. I called every other auctioneer. Nobody was available. And I sort of almost perfected this very stiff kind of British gentleman, because I thought that that's what I should look like on stage. I wore a black suit. I was just very, very strict on stage, just like you would be in an art auction. And I got on the stage and I was so sick that I didn't even have the ability to act any other way than the way that I am on stage now, which is just joking, making jokes about everything. And I was seated in front of a woman who I was selling her lot as the first item. And I'd been seated next to her 5 years prior when the guy I thought I was going to marry dumped me. And I cried the entire lunch next to her. She's one of our top clients at Christie's. And she was so nice about the whole thing. So I told that story to the audience and I said, lot number one, you're going to have an amazing time at Jennifer's house. I assure you, she has a world-class art collection. Daniel Ballou will be the caterer. But more importantly, I sat next to Jennifer the day after the man I thought I was going to marry dumped me, and she nursed me back to health over 1 hour. So if you are seeing a therapist, you should save your money, go to Jennifer's house. She'll have you patched up in an hour. And everyone kind of started laughing. And I remember thinking, oh, this is different. Like people are paying attention a little bit. And so the next slot was a lot about Mexico. So I dove in a little bit more. I talked about how psyched I was that I hadn't signed a Girls Gone Wild waiver that my dad had told me not to sign when I went to Cancun and when I was a senior. And again, people were just paying attention. And I realized the storytelling aspect was what I was missing in that charity auctioneering realm. And that was really how I learned the power of suggestion. So when I started talking about a trip to Mexico, I stopped talking about the bedrooms and I started talking about the beach and the fact that there's going to be 100 feet of snow in New York this year. And everybody knows it because it's already freezing. And don't you need this in your back pocket? And it was like I gave them 7 different ways to see this. A birthday getaway with your friends, a way to reconnect with your family. I'm just anything I could think of on that stage. And you can see it in their eyes. Like, why do I need this? Oh, I hadn't even thought about that. My 50th birthday's in 2 years. This could be amazing. Like all of these things, I'm watching people in the audience, their eyes are lighting up. I go back to the fact that I said at the beginning, this is sales, right? What do you do in sales? You paint the picture. People like the picture, they buy it. It's sales.
Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you for having me.
Huge thanks to Lydia for doing this today. She is clearly a savant with auctioneering skills and sales in general. I think a lot of these core foundational skills that she's using apply broadly. The power of suggestion, otherwise, I think can very much be used by a lot of entrepreneurs in their technique and craft. So I hope it was helpful. We'll catch you next time.